glad. Well, welcome. I love new tools. I love figuring this out. I'm like poking all of the buttons in Twitch and StreamYard and everything. So thanks for being with me on this like fun little journey.
Yeah, let me see. I want to see if I can find the Twitch stream. I can share it.
Yeah, here we go. Twitch TV. It should be Twitch TV / Erin McHale.
Yeah.
And just drop that there. But this will be super fun. And I think it should be, so we should be streaming live on Twitter and YouTube right now. So rock on. But I'm excited to build some IoT things.
Yeah.
It's gonna be super fun. But first off, I guess like we should probably do intros. So I've known you for what? We've known each other on the internet for a while now, but you could still be a metaverse human.
I could.
Because we've never met in person. So I also could be a metaverse human. If someone's on the line watching this, then I guess tell us, and you've met us in person, then you could tell us if we're metaverses or not. Real people. Raise a poll, I guess, if you're not a metaverse human.
I don't know. I've tried to convince people that I'm a metaverse person, so hopefully some people are confused.
Does it make things easier or worse if you're packing and moving if you're a metaverse human?
If you're packing and moving, easier.
Like if you have to move apartments, like I always think about like moving, but like then it's like whenever you get a new laptop or a new ID or a new whatever, you're always like, oh, I have to find all my files again or figure out what's next. And it's like, oh, did I actually say that? Or if you're me, I just hard reset a laptop and wipe everything.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
That's more like it.
I was like, I just am like, it's not important. But yeah. So thanks for joining me. I'm excited to have maker time with you again. And yeah, I'd like to hear about like what are we going to jam on today in the IoT world?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll chat a little bit about IoT and kind of like how it's been going, where it's going, smart homes, how to automate stuff. And my passion is making things. And once I learned a little bit of electronics and started to figure out like, oh, I can just connect this to the internet and I don't need a physical controller. I can just use a website that I make. I started to get really into ESPs and Raspberry Pis and burnt out an awful lot of Wi-Fi chips on Arduinos back before I learned about the 3.3 volt, 5 volt thing and had a lot of fun with that. But we'll talk a little bit about like prototyping and what kind of stuff you can build.
And like, if you're completely overwhelmed by this all, like I want to reiterate, like, I know I'm pretty self-taught in this world. I don't know about you. It's like, this is beginner friendly. And if you have any questions at all, just feel free to holler, raise a hand, comment. I like to think that we're not scary, intimidating people on the internet, interwebs. Our metaverse humans aren't too terrifying. But yeah, super beginner friendly. So
yeah, absolutely. Fun. Yep.
But yeah, so first off, like I have my little Arduino box and some NFC chips. But what will we be playing around with today a little bit on all of this?
So I was planning on doing a really cool demo with the ESP32, but I could not get the USB driver necessary installed on my laptop that has a webcam. Because I usually do this at the makerspace. Okay, so that's my background is I did major in computer science. I love programming, but I never got into like physical building things until after I graduated with my degree in computer science and had a few very funny incidents at electronics shops where I realized that the thing that I thought was just like a diagram from a textbook actually was a physical thing that I could like touch and buy and bring home and work with. So it's definitely a lot of just experimenting, a lot of burning out boards and learning about how electricity works.
I definitely, so hardware, I will fully admit was kind of like the learning curve for me. So I was a very noob at when it comes to learning the hardware side of everything. And I joke that I'm a chaos dev. And like we were talking a little bit before this stream of like, yeah, like I have been a developer. I do know, and I feel really comfortable in front end or editing Liquid or styling something. And then it'll be like a simple thing that I'm like, this makes sense in my brain. But then I try to do it with other people and they're like, who taught you? And I'm like, actually me.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually me, I've never been formally taught. So someone please help and like take a kind comment. So I love that you have this like formal background. Definitely can relate to burning out a few boards and learning about how electricity works. And yeah,
Last week I kept zapping myself. I was trying to program a relay into a water pump so that we could like do self-watering planters, and I just kept zapping myself.
I feel like that's like kind of all you can do is just like embrace it rather than the struggle things through. Welcome friends if you're just joining in. I'm glad you're here. But yeah. So what in the world is IoT? Before we spill the IoT, we should probably share what the heck is IoT if you're new it. So we can spill it if we have it. It's the logic right there, right?
Oh, we have the IoT. So the
Internet of Things. All right, next question. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But I think when we think of Internet of Things, I always get I used to be actually very terrified of anything connected, anything Internet of Things, anything related to that, because it was very much like this is Skynet, like computers are coming to my brain. I'm very into Westworld. So I'm like, there we go, downfall, society is ending. But the more that I've dove into it, the more that I've realized it's a pretty friendly place.
Absolutely. So I was like very against having a lot of connected devices in the house too, particularly smart speakers. And I was really against it until I got a job as a software engineer for Plex, and I was on the smart speakers team. So I just ended up with a lot of smart speakers in my house, and I eventually got used to using them, and then eventually started to learn about like smart plugs and how do I automate answering the door and things like that. And just little things that made life easier. Made me not have to find a remote, made me not have to get up and go find a light switch. Just things that I could control from my phone and things that I could kind of build myself. And so that's when I started to kind of come around to the fact that, hey, I'm a pretty privacy-minded individual, but it is what it is. If this makes my life easier, I'm not saying too much. Like, if they just want to do targeted ads, like, all right, fine, go for it. But
and there's also things that you can do to protect yourself in many ways. Like, I know in our home, we do have some of the smart devices, but we actually have a separate sandboxed email that connects to them. So it's not connected to our personal email. And I feed it random searches all the time just because my conspiracy theory brain thinks that it'll save me. So, but however, on that same flip side, my ads with like, it's also connected to like our Hulu and whatnot. And so my ads also got very medicinal for a while. And I was like, I don't know what I forgot what I've been feeding this, but I am now getting, I'm actually an 82-year-old man, according to my ad settings, for better, for worse. We'll go from there, but yeah. Did I build a gadget for random searches? Actually, no, I didn't. I wish that I was that smart. I should. Honestly, it is an Airtable of random things. And as I Google, I figure out which ones don't relate back to me. So I should build that. Actually is a great thing. It's currently a random Airtable.
I wonder if you could do something like that with like how Pi-hole blocks all of the ads on your home network. I wonder if you could do something like that.
It's very, very interesting. I think a lot of the times of like what you could search, and like we have a few people here that have Amazon devices, and that's the one that actually scares me the most, I think, out of all these, because of the fact that it's tied to e-commerce. Like, and just, I came from the e-commerce world. I know how e-commerce works. But that's the one that scares me a little bit. But again, that is up to you to decide. And a lot of like what we're going to be doing today is kind of on your own machine. So you can do NFC chips and a lot of these without even breaking that extra device barrier, or kind of keeping it on your local machine, which is really nice. And yeah, I feel you. The Amazon buying iRobot, it's definitely a little interesting. Oh, fun little Arduino project. I'm like, bookmark for later.
Computer recipe. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a little fun one. Thank you, Andy Piper. I'm going to bookmark that. That is very exciting. But yeah, so the smart home devices have been really good. Where else are we using these devices rather? I think the home is really common, but where else are we using these devices commonly?
So I have recently found myself in a situation where I have a lot of friends who are pursuing higher education degrees in science, and they're all doing their master's theses and their PhD dissertations. So I have friends constantly asking me for help with Arduino and Raspberry Pi projects to do science experiments. In fact, I'm working with my boyfriend Franco, who's pursuing his PhD in ecology with a focus in ornithology. We are both absolute bird nerds. Like we spent yesterday, we drove an hour to go try to find a rare bird for Connecticut, a bird that both of us have seen before, by the way, but it was just rare in Connecticut. So we went to go find it. And so we've been working on just like a really easy Internet of Things device that has a microphone, takes the recordings of all of the sounds of all the birds that are passing over the house. And then Franco has a machine learning model from when he just does recordings out in the marshes. So he just takes the SD cards, loads up the recordings. But so we've been working on this machine learning model to be able to identify birds by their calls and chip notes,
Super
in
cool.
real time. So then we can connect it up so we can get text messages if there's a rare bird in our yard so that we know to go outside.
That is super cool. And I love this question on RFIC chip embeds. Like, cause like that feels like a very practical thing. Or if you're me and you're slightly terrified of birds to some extent, you could put that up and be like, okay, there's giant birds outside. Don't go outside. I'm like, great, internet. I'll stay back on the internet. I'll watch them through the YouTube like my cat does when I put bird TV on for him. But RFID chip embeds, this is actually something, I don't know if you follow the Chip Girl on TikTok, where I got really into this. And I was half convinced for 2 weeks that I was going to do this myself. But then I did settle, and maybe one day I'll put it in a manicure.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the manicure ones and I was just like, all right, like that's kind of a good middle ground to see if this actually improves my life enough to consider having like a chip embedded in my arm. It makes me a little bit nervous, but I was personally resistant to credit cards with NFC chips too. Mm-hmm. But I also now am just so used to it that it's okay. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting. I wouldn't want to have it for work. Like if I was working in a highly secured area or something, and so it's like, well, you can't open the door unless you've got your little swatch here. And I do also have a lot of friends who have had big issues who have their garage doors connected to the internet.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that is like a really common like hack, or people break into those and have kind of experienced enough to be like, ooh, that's a little. Even some of the smart home stuff I do when it comes to security, like you hear of like the Nest hacks and you hear of that kind of stuff. That does, and you bring up a good point with the work-life balance. So I think in this very online world, our work life and our personal life, especially if you're creating content or tutorials, like it can be a very blurry, slippery slope. And I would get a little hesitant just because if you're me and I'm logging off for the weekend, I log off. I don't check Twitter. I don't look at things. And even now, like I am on the quest for like my next job. And like, I openly have told people like, hey, thank you for reaching out via Twitter, but also don't. Like, I will lose this DM and I will forget about it, or Twitter doesn't have an unlocked DM features. And it's also a boundary for me. Like, it is a boundary. And like, I can implement that in Twitter and just not check it and not check an app. I can't implement a boundary if it's embedded in my skin. Yeah. But even some tools. So I use the Popple. I got it a couple of weeks for like a conference and stuff, which is like, it's an NFC chip sticker. They make a card. They make a couple other things. They make phone cases. And all it is a sticker that like opens up into an app. But one of the things I really liked about it is the device actually has a work mode and a personal mode. So I can have someone scan it and they see just my personal information, just what I'm into, just my personal stuff. And I don't have to disclose the work professional side of me to someone, which I do comedy outside of my day job. I like to create content for Erin, not for a company. So it's really nice to be able to have that boundary implemented and not necessarily relied on by work. Oh, also, yes, the power outage and device don't work. Like I always have the conspiracy theory, like if a giant magnet were to wipe over the earth tomorrow, how many devices
when I were talking about what would happen if the poles switched the other day too. Like, what would happen? I don't know. So many things depend on magnets. It's weird. But yeah, I with the work-life balance thing too, and even like so I literally got all of my smart home devices through one of my last jobs. So that's also kind of like a weird boundary, and it's just kind of like makes me nervous a little bit, but I don't think I would ever get a chip in bed for work things. So I work also, my side hustle is out at Makerspace. And yeah, we absolutely we've got all of our doors are automated. Like if you haven't taken the metal shop training, you can't get into the metal shop. And a big impetus actually for the IoT program that we're currently teaching at the Makerspace was that we wanted to implement a way for us to track who was using which devices the most, so we could kind of make things better for them. And also, make sure that like somebody who hasn't taken any of the welding classes, like doesn't spend a day breaking the welder. I don't know, things like that. Like we just will know kind of who used which devices and make sure that everybody gets the appropriate training too. And it would also be nice if we could kind of do like a different business model situation, because we have a lot of manufacturing companies around our makerspace. We're in a big airline manufacturing area. And so a lot of times they'll want to come in and use a CNC machine just for like a quick thing, even for an interview, just to interview somebody. They don't want to decommission one of their machines, but they just need to see that somebody knows how to use all of these pieces of equipment. So they can like we can scan it in, and we can just see like how much time did you spend on this machine, and we can bill companies for the time that they spend using our machines.
Yeah, that's so there's a makerspace. I used to live in Reno. I just dropped it in the comments here, but there's a makerspace in Reno actually that I used to be a member of, that's called the Reno Generator, and they do a lot of work with makerspaces. They have like the big CNC, but that's a lot of their business models is they host workshops and events, and the workshops and events are paid, but you also get to learn a skill that if you want to buy a membership, it's almost like an apprenticeship model, which is I think it's super accessible as someone who is extremely self-taught. And I did take a somewhat formal learning with IoT, but in an adjacent manner. I took a class in grad school on resiliency and technology. And so part of this class, we actually used Arduinos to be like, how do we use these microcomputing structures to kind of build a better future? And how, if you are in a low tech environment, what tools do you have available to you? What items do you have available? How would you work through something? And without like internet connectivity or anything else, because a lot of these can be battery powered, which is super cool to think about. Or
and
even
that's
have like
also
solar
just
power.
Like an interesting thing with like coming up with designs of Internet of Things devices, and just some things that we need to consider when we do stuff like that too, where a big part of the reason that I ended up like getting more kind of into IoT, I participated in a hackathon in, I don't know, this was probably 2015 or 2016. Yeah, it was 2015, where one of the sponsors was the Things Network. So what the Things Network does is they have a network that has a range of like 2 miles. It's super low bandwidth, so you just send little tiny packets of data, but it makes it so that you can design all of these devices to send these little tiny pieces of data, and you can have a lot of devices on the one network, and it's got the super wide range. And so I think we were at the hackathon, my friend Ethan and I were trying to hit all of the hackathon sponsors, of course, so we could maximize the chance of winning. So we also worked with Todoist or Doist to use the Things Network. We set up a like light sensor and a couple other sensors, and so we had it automated so that if the lights went out, you would get an item added to your to-do list, and in Todoist that you need to pay your electricity bill. So
I have NFC chips currently hooked up to Todoist today. And we use Todoist in our house because I need a calendar reminder to remember like those little things.
Yep.
Or we use it for a grocery list just because like my husband does sometimes we work out of the office, and like it is a grocery list of like we can both have it on our phones, and it's a nice little reminder. But we actually have it for things like we have NFC chips, and they're just these like NFC stickers. You can literally buy 50 of them on Amazon for $15. So I have 45 left that I will be looking for projects for. But these little NFC stickers, and all I've done is like we have one that's like pick up X the store, or like add to to-do list. So it opens up the Todoist app when you tap it on the fridge, and you can make your grocery list, or it auto adds certain items. But yeah, how does this work? I guess overall, like we've talked about what it is, what you can do with it, but like, is it just like random magic on the internet? Because like that's my logic of how does it all work and come together.
Well, it's really interesting because there are a lot of different kinds of solutions for the networks, depending on what the application of IoT is. So for all of these smart home devices, piece of cake, everybody's got their home Wi-Fi network set up anyways, so you can just connect everything to the local network, no problem. In situations where I guess like the kind of the classic example of like what IoT is going to be is for farming situations. Like that's the one that I always hear. It has not really taken off, but to automate like irrigation, and if you've got a field that's 5 acres big, a home Wi-Fi network's not going to cut it. Like you need a different kind of network. So that's where things like the Thing networks come in, where you've got a LoRaWAN network is what it's called. So it's a wide area network that's super low bandwidth, just passes these little tiny pieces of information, and then it'll pass that back to your central hub. Your central hub can do all the processing and issue any orders out to respond to the data. So then you also have a lot of data. And so this is another interesting way that IoT kind of ties into this big data concept, where we've got now all of these sensors that are connected to, it's a different kind of network, but ultimately the internet, and we're collecting tons and tons and tons of data. So there's a lot of interesting applications for that as well, just to be able to track things on this very granular level.
Well, and it's interesting because like I remember one of the very, 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 very first projects when I was getting into building my own IoT things, how these projects like can scale. So I think one of the early projects they actually have on the Arduino education site is how to tell if your plant needs watering or not. And you put in like how moist does the soil need to be, and like then it sends a little ping on your phone and it says your plant needs to be watered, which is like, you think about it for a silly little house plant, like, do I really need to be remembered to water? Okay, actually, yes, I kill a lot of plants. But that being said, that same application is just applied to a larger network, and you can add chains of reactions beyond that. So yes, I do need a plant that tweets. It actually drags me on Twitter. That's like, ding dong, I'm dying. Please help me. Please feed me, Erin. This is a bit of a tangent. I have a nerve plant. It's actually kind of in the window right next to me here. But the nerve plants, if you're familiar with them, they get very dramatic when they need to be watered. So the plant like collapses when they need to be watered. And so I can only have plants like that are like, I'm dying. I absolutely need something. And the plant is literally falling over. And I'm like, oh crap, need to water. So that's the only thing I've been able to keep alive is, I guess, my cat, but he kind of runs his house. So I actually just work for him.
Yeah. But that's usually how it goes. But we're doing something really similar to that at my makerspace right now. I'm in the process of teaching an IoT class with a couple other teachers there. And so we've just got a couple buckets with pepper plants in them. We've got a UV light that we've just set on a timer. Ultimately, we would like for the UV light to kick on like based on some sensor readings, but we've got a couple different sensors. We've got our soil temperature sensor, we've got our soil moisture sensor, air temperature sensor, and just like a simple photo resistor just to see if the light hasn't been turned on today. So it's really interesting too. We're trying to automate things as much as possible. This also led to a couple interesting learnings last week about relays. And so relays you can use to have these microcontrollers to be able to program things on Arduino and be able to control like the 110, 120 volt electronic devices by adding a relay into the middle. So now you can send the control signals through the relay, turn on your device. That's how I got zapped a bunch of times by a water pump last week. But
there's always like all those like little things that you learn in the process. But yeah, and I'm dropping, if you are interested in like getting into that, like that's a guide for like the soil moisture sensor, which like I think I do have one actually in this little tiny box of here. I'm like, let me dig through my magical box of, I have a bunch of random chips in here. And I'm like, I thought I had a soil sensor, but
I was digging around in my
I'm like, maybe I'm like, I think I have a soil sense. I have a bunch of lights and I have like the light sensors that come on. And a lot of these parts, like this is the Arduino Nanos. Like you can see how tiny these little things are. I'm like, do the whole influencer thing where it's like, they actually are really small. And I'm impressed about like how much this little thing can power. And it's
totally
it's smaller than my finger.
Yeah, 100%. When I first started digging around in electronics in around 2015, there weren't a lot of Wi-Fi capable microprocessors yet. And so my friend Ethan and I had gotten a bunch of Wi-Fi chips and not fully understanding that those were 3.3 volt things. Our Arduino was a 5 volt thing. And that's how we ended up burning 7 Wi-Fi chips before we figured that out. But now there are boards that are like this small. This is an ESP32. This one is just kind of like a cheap, no brand name deal, but you can get them through Adafruit, of course. But yeah, this tiny thing connects up to the internet. You run a web server on it. You run a web server on this thing, like 1 inch by 2 inches. That's pretty cool.
I'm always so amazed. And here's that Adafruit website. I'm just going to drop it in. If you're like, oh my goodness, I need to build something right this instant. I get really excited about this. I have like, I do eye those LCD screens a lot. Yeah. And like, there's like that tutorial that's like, I want to hook an API up to an LCD screen to get my news headlines or my RSS feed. Like, I think that like, that's a project I've been dying. I just haven't really wanted to cash out for the size of LCD screen that I want because that is an expensive project. Oh no, I can sense it.
So my master's thesis was building a smart mirror.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I used a Raspberry Pi as the brains behind it. And so you can it's got an HDMI port, right? Just use any leftover display that you have.
Done. I'm like, I love Andy Pie. I'm relating really hard to Andy in the comments. I did not need to buy more toys, but now I need to buy more toys. I'm like currently browsing the Adafruit website over here. Like, what am I going to buy today? Like, let's just see. I'm like, la, 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 it's fine. La, 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 it's fine. Yeah, I'm like.
But smart mirrors, that's another fun smart home device. That was fun. I will admit, I did not use it a whole lot, but it's fun. And yeah, I just used like an old TV that I had kicking around, and I just put the two-way mirror glass in front of it. All the brains were done on a Raspberry Pi, so I just kicked up a web server, hooked up a bunch of APIs, had the weather on it, had a couple news headlines, had set up using the Twitter API. I set it up so that people could tweet at me how pretty I am, and I would see it in my mirror.
Oh my goodness, done. I'm like, okay, BRB, gonna go get this right now. Like now that, cause like I never thought about hooking it up through HDMI. Like that's the one thing I think had probably been missing in this whole adventure of things is thinking about hooking it up to like just a regular display rather than an LCD. Cause like I've been eyeing those like Arduino like LCD screen and I'm like, this is so cool. I'm gonna just hook up an API to go to that. But like expensive. Because like the one that I looked at is like $3,000. And I'm like, can I justify? I do not have the extra FU money for $3,000 right now. Can I justify that?
HDMI,
but
yeah.
HDMI, I do actually probably have 16 of them kicking around in my cabinet of random Erin electronic junk in the house. And not junk. If my husband is watching it, it's not junk. It is treasures. It is treasures. They are fine treasures.
No throwing things away.
Yeah, no, that is the Erin fun cabinet of adventure. But should we start to get making? I know you have a project on hand, so
I have a project on hand. So I'll explain what I was planning on demoing here and explain why sometimes things don't work, which is also an important lesson in all of this anyways. But okay, so the project was basically I just wanted to show how you can use these ESP32s as prototyping boards, and just do like a quick and dirty prototype, get your web server up and running on it. But so what I've got an RGB LED, you can see my 4 prongs. I understand that you need to put your, there we go. Okay. Resistors. I could not find my resistors this morning also, so I was just gonna, have at it. But anyways, so that's what the wiring is here. We've just got our pins for our red mix, green mix, blue mix, and then what I was gonna do is spin up the web server on this guy and make it so there's a website that you can go to on any device in your local network that you can go to a website on, and use a color picker to change the color of your RGB LED. I've done this on ESP32s before, and I've also done it with Raspberry Pis. The Raspberry Pi was really fun because I was building like a Raspberry Pi powered laptop thing, and so I built like a custom little badge. I 3D printed a cute little design badge on the back of it, and you could change the color of your badge using the website. So that was neat. But anyways, so we can chat real quick about the code that goes into this one.
And here, I can open up a glitch so we can, what the code looks like, so we can code along.
Yeah.
Let's see. Spinning up glitch. It's verifying with GitHub right now. I've been giving one of my developer friends, as a slight tangent, a lot of crap because right now I'm on a higher streak of coding on GitHub and like committing than he has been. And I'm like, you're a software developer and I'm a chaos dev and I have committed more than you in the last 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Well, don't look at my GitHub.
I mean, it's like, what did Erin do today? It's like she played in Handlebars for the 1,000th time. And I can drop this link in. It is loading.
But so if you look at this little prototyping board, I think this was like a literally $7 board. You see that you've got your chip, but you've also got all of these input output pins. So there's a lot of analog input output pins on this. So you can just be sending that data back and forth. So we've been using this with like a bunch of different kinds of sensors, the temperature sensor, the soil sensor, and all that. And then we're able to connect it up to a relay to be able to turn on like a light and water pump, things like that. So, if you know like just enough about electronics there, and if you know how to find the tutorials on how to wire these things up, then that's kind of the move.
Yeah. And the Arduino website they actually have a cloud-based version that is actually really great. Like that was my intro into it. That really got me into learning about Arduinos and I'm actually like making sure it's going good right now. But I think that's been a huge one for at least when I was learning. That was like my go-to resource was the Arduino website.
Yep.
That had the walkthrough tutorials, that had the everything. Let's see. Da-da-da.
Yeah, I mean, I started from this like not even understanding how basic circuits worked, like, and just through looking at all of these tutorials, like I kind of got the understanding of the difference between analog and digital outputs. So with digital just being like on or off, and analog being able to send values in a range. it's really, really interesting. There are a ton of great resources online. I'll post actually another website that I really, really like for ESP32 tutorials. If I can find it.
Let's see. I'm like quickly. So I'm like in my, you can see, wow, Erin already has a billion tabs. Hasn't even been half the day yet. But I want to go to the Arduino Cloud. Oh no. It's like you're no longer on your academia plan anymore. But this is what it really looks like. And the thing that's really nice is like you can come in and access like these little dashboards. You can start to link. So actually, let's see. I have a port right here. Let's just, I'll hard code this. Let's go. So we can build like, you can link these little devices. So if we're going to add a device and I just have, let's see, what is this one? We're going to do, I have an Arduino Nano right here. And this Nano is a Nano 33 IoT. So we'll have some fun with it. Ooh, love ESP tutorials. I can add this device and it is connected just by a USB mini chip. And it'll ask me to like set it up. And you can do your third-party devices through here. I have done a few. I kind of learned Arduino first and then explored elsewhere. Have you played with this at all, Julie?
I have, yeah. So yeah, I used the Arduino Cloud things last year, and it worked out pretty well. The only tricky part is that when I started working with the ESP32s instead of an Arduino Uno, there's like some weirdness with the serial ports where it requires a driver software that's just like not by default installed. And that was the battle that I had again this morning, where Mac just really does not love that driver software to use the serial ports. So it just like wouldn't connect my ESP32. But
I mean, I'm currently installing it because I just reset the computer. So I'm like, all right, well, let's connect your IoT device. So I've got a cord right here, and I don't have my second camera set up because we're still setting it up. So let's see if I haven't burned this. I have a green light, so we are good. Let me extend this cord out. We have a green light. It's going to say waiting for your device to come available. It's going to take a little second. We could not find this. And sometimes these, I have not touched this chip in probably a year. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see if this chip even works. I've got a green light, so I'm thinking that's usually my default is like, did the green light turn on?
Yeah.
Step one.
Yeah.
Did light turn on?
No, I mean, there the couple issues that I have wasted days of my life on. You need to make sure that the cable that you're using to connect the thing is a data processing cable. There's no very obvious way to know if something's a data processing cable, just usually if it costs more.
It's like, does it cost more? And the one that, I have like a separate dock because why did Mac reduce the number of ports on your freaking computer? I'm still mad about this. I'm still mad about this. Forever mad about this.
Yeah.
But in that thing, like one of the things that I have noticed is if you are using like a separate dock and make sure that it is another data processing one and not just a power dock, because that has caused me to yell at my computer multiple times. So let's see if we can troubleshoot this on the fly. I'm restarting the lovely Arduino app.
Yep, there's that. There's the issue with the drivers, but it's all things that like once you figure it out once, you're flying. You're good to go.
Arduino Create Agent. And it's like this kind of, the app is also, at least from my experience using the Arduino Create app, kind of clunky. Like at least that's what I've experienced. So I'm going to go, I have another chip here. So let's just switch chips. I don't know what project this is on. We'll find out. We're going to go on an adventure. I do know that this is a data processing cable because I was using it for something else. So
okay,
I have that one confirmed. And I haven't adjusted my setup. So this is, I don't even know what chip this is, but I'm not going to try and remove it from the board right now to figure out what chip it is. We're just going to see if we can connect it. We have green lights and we have a blinky light. It is probably another similar nano or in the nano family is what I would probably guess. Da, da, da. This is like the most annoying part. And like the other thing is when I learned this, like the big one for me is like, and you'll see this is a very like newbie board. And I say newbie with the most love because I am a noob chaos agent. And it has this like blue and red on the board, which I need that like cheater thing.
It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out how to use breadboards. Like I just, for whatever reason, I was like, I would rather just plug everything in directly. I do not understand how this grid system works. And then I had one of my students just show me like, all right, here's the deal. We're just going to plug this into power, this into ground, and then everything else you can do yourself. I was like,
yeah, no, so I'm trying to find like a good grid or Arduino grid powers. Cause like, this is like, we're not connected. We're just going to learn the other thing about it. So the Arduino grid bread. Let's see if there's a good graph on this. But when you have, there used to be one that I remember referencing that's like a map of it. Arduino map. It's not that one. Breadboard.
That one looks like it would like explain the deal kind of. So yeah, okay. So with breadboards, you've got two sides. I think the two sides thing was what really threw me here. But you've got everything that connects to your power and everything that connects to your ground. And then you can use everything else for the little pins. So in a lot of cases, you're probably not actually going to use like just plug your board right into your breadboard. With these like tiny little boards, it's very convenient to do that. But when I use like my Arduino Uno, not how that works, but it's really helpful to just kind of be able to see like that it's definitely plugged in and connected to those particular pins. In this case, because I was just using the RGB LED and I do have my board plugged directly in, I didn't have to worry about connecting this to the ground line and then connecting the ground line to the ground on the board. I was able just to connect directly from the ground pin to the ground pin.
Yeah. It took me way too long to figure out like circuits and how they work. I was like, code prior. Like I remember when I was like doing this in a workshop with other people, I was like, oh, anybody need help on the code? I'll write the code for you. But like, anybody need help with the breadboard? Because like I need help. I can't figure out how the circuit moves. I can't figure out how everything moves. And I think like jumping onto this, like even just like trying to figure out like for this was like blew my mind trying to even figure out like where does your chip go? Where does the in out go? Like, and then again, the thing with hardware is it's like harder to detect. Is it a hardware problem or is it a software problem? Or is it a connection between the hardware and the software? And I think it's like,
oh my gosh, I cannot even tell you how many hours of my life have been spent on a cable that I thought was a data cable and was not. You know, where I'm like completely rewriting code. I'm doing all sorts of new projects. I've gone through like 3 different ESP32s thinking that I just kept burning them out. Like, no, it was just the cable.
It was me. I definitely remember like freaking out in this workshop and like trying to get everything troubleshooted. And yeah, just nothing. Like, it's fine.
But hey, as devs, we're used to like silly things.
We're a little masochistic. Like we're a little maker. I think maker like patience will give you a little masochistic taste of everything. And that's part of the fun is like, I say that very hesitancy, like being like, that is part of the fun. That is like, because that first moment when you do get something working, it is pretty nice to feel like a little masochistic. Yes. A lot, you know, same, but different. I think, you know, we have about like 15 minutes left and thank you so much for like spending time. And it's just like so lovely to make again. I'm just excited. And I know there's going to be maker stuff in the future. So thank you for hanging out and being down to, IoT today.
Yeah. Let me know when you want to look at some code. I'll
Yeah.
explain the whole like web server business going on here.
Yeah.
At least, at the very least, even if I can't get it to run on my ESP today, I can.
Yeah, I think you should be able to share your screen on the bottom. Let's see.
Yes. Yes.
But like, if you want a low hanging fruit, and if you're just like, well, she gets that up and going, let me know if you can share your screen. There is a app called, I am blanking the name, or if you have a link, I can even share it on mine. I'm like, there is an app called blank the name of app. The NFC Tools app. And if you're just like wanting to play with NFC, and it's literally like super rudimentary NFC coding on your phone. And it's like, if anybody used if this, then that, it's very much like that. But it's NFC chips, and you can make them in sticker format. The discovery that you could buy 50 NFC stickers for like $15 was kind of the thing I should not be allowed to discover.
I used Blink also is another one that I used to just like set up quick and dirty little, like, I just need all this to work. Please, just work.
I know. I'm like actually gonna go download the Blink app right now. I'm like, this is
so I can't share my screen because Google Chrome wants me to restart if I do that.
Like if you have it.
But I have the GitHub link, which I will send you.
Perfect. I'll control your GitHub in the comment section.
Oh God.
I mean, it's like I put emojis and I'm like, you're doing great because I am a chaos dev. So it's all positive trolling.
Let's see. This is a very just like disorganized repo from last year. I taught a summer STEM program for high schoolers last year at the Makerspace, and we had 3 weeks of robotics, and we got super bored with just like the Arduino board for the robots. So we added in the ESP32s, and I got some motor controllers so that we could like program websites to control our robots from, so that we could control our robots remotely also. And it was really rad. It was very fun.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
I see. I'll end this here. I sent that in the little chat thing here. But it is the RGB LED code file.
Rad. I need to move my like Arduino stuff on my GitHub because currently I think it's all in glitch. Whoopsie. Yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like. I can point. I'm like, look at this.
Let's see. I don't know if you are able to show.
Oh, I'm like over here, like, look at my beautiful screen. Like, no, it's actually just me being like,
all right.
So this is the overarching file.
Well, this is all. I just use this as like a space repository, basically, to share with my students. But so it's the RGB LED code. This is another thing that I quite like about the Arduino like ecosystem is just it's easy to kind of just do everything in one file and use these libraries. So this particular thing, when you're using the ESP and you want to run up a web server, you just include that Wi-Fi library like built right into Arduino. So nice. And so also just kind of piece of cake, you're connecting to your local Wi-Fi network. With this project, it's important to note that it's just going to be accessible on your local network. So this was from my makerspace last summer. There you go. There's the password. You're setting up your Wi-Fi server, and then this is where you're setting up your like defaults. What's going to be kind of the baseline for your website for when you spin this up, when you get your web server started. We have settings for our red pin, green pin, and blue pin. And so the way RGB lights work, of course, is they just mix those values to get the desired color. And so when we set up our web server, we've got our just our regular HTTP request string, and that's just going to get passed through a GET request. Really simple. And so we spin up our web server down here a little bit. So we set everything up on a serial port. We have our red channel, our green channel, blue channel, and those are the variables where we're going to pass the values to using our GET request. So we set up our server down here where if we're connected to the Wi-Fi, we can connect to our server, no problem. It tells us even what our IP address is in the serial monitor so that we can go look for it in just by IP address. So you can use your phone and you can use your computer. And here's where it's kind of wonky. So for our client, we create a website. And so we are just doing that by literally like printing lines to this client variable. And so we're just printing HTML to it. And that client is the thing that's running on that IP address. So if I were to go to, like 10.10, usually 100 or 21 or something, you would see a website that's made by this particular HTML. And this HTML just has a color picker. So I would be able to pick my color that takes the red data, the green data, the blue data, and it passes it in variables in our HTTP request. That HTTP request then gets sent to the server on our ESP32, and then the ESP32 can send that information to those analog pins that our physical pins here are connected to. So then we can just send those values, the red value, green value, and blue value to those like physical pins, which it's just really cool. Like I came from a very pure like web development background, and to be able to like tangibly make something in the physical world is really cool.
And I think especially when you start getting into those Wi-Fi chips, like that was the mind-blowing thing for me, is like, it's not even connected to my computer right now and it's going. Like that was the biggest thing, is like I was kind of like, yeah, it's cool, but it's like still connected to a cord to my computer, and it only works if I plug it in to the computer. And then that Wi-Fi chip was like the next thing. The other thing is like this like print line, that's like my secret hero when I've done this, because there's always, that's the troubleshooting, like, hey, ding dong, like, did this actually work?
Are you really updating a website here?
Are you actually connected, or are you just refreshing the thing that you've been doing for the last hours? And it's like, usually it's like, then it's like, I always notice, at least if you're me and you're working on this, it's like, damn it, please work now. Damn it, work yesterday. Make things yesterday.
Yeah.
Shit. Nothing's working. And then it's like, oh, we've got profanity. Something worked. But
that should be a developer poster.
It should be. It's like when you just like print to get things to work, and it just like increase the level of profanities until it's like, ooh.
Wow, 15 F words.
Yeah.
Great, finally connected. Nice.
It's connected. Good job. Damn it.
But yeah, so it just, you're able to write your client like directly there, and then just use that as kind of your control panel. So it's the same deal. Like you can now connect it to like an Alexa API. So you could use voice controls, just as long as you have that client open. So you can use kind of anything as your client. Like you could just use an Alexa device as your client. So then you're not dealing with a website to control things. You're dealing with voice controls, touchpads, all sorts of different input devices. And that's another really interesting thing, and was a big part of my thesis, was input controls. Like how are you interacting with all of these devices on the internet? Because in a lot of cases, you're not just using a screen. It's not like a typical mouse and keyboard interaction situation. So you're using voice controls. So you've got all of your voice control APIs that you can use. You can use gesture controls if you've got a camera set up, which is really wild. You can use touchscreen things. And this was where the Smart Mirror was an interesting project, because there's no obvious input device for Smart Mirror. Probably a camera is the most obvious input device, but you can't use a touchscreen because then you'd smudge your mirror all day. Voice control, it is excruciatingly awkward to like talk at yourself in a mirror to like ask what the weather is. Like, hey, self, what's the weather today?
I mean, to each their own. I mean, you never know. The ones that I have been really fascinated by, and this might be Erin isn't working a full-time job right now, maker thing, is have you seen all the Arduino projects that are Arduino to Fortnite?
What?
Yeah, there's a bunch of Arduino projects that are Arduino to Fortnite. So I'm actually gonna pull up one right here.
Yeah.
And it's like they're all like they have the here's the dance bomb like Fortnite that someone made, but you can actually access the Fortnite API and build things like here's like Arduino controllers for Fortnite, and people have built these things using they're using like the Arduino Micro, which I know I've got one of those kicking around in my boxes, but like these are really like the art, like any API that you have out there, it's like that's like the fun to this to me is like how can you bring a very online experience. Like in my undergrad, I took a whole class on Second Life. We did a thesis project in Second Life by like undergrad. Wow, I'm probably dating myself right here, like because many people like when the metaverse, when everybody's like tangent, when everybody was like, oh, metaverse, I'm like, you mean Second Life? I'm like, Second Life and LiveJournal, this is back again. Actually, they're probably like big goobers, but that is like the thing for me getting into Arduinos was discovering you can use pretty much any API. So like there's actually a bunch of YouTubers that have used Fortnite. I might find a Sims 4 one. I don't know if Sims 4 has a thing. Yes, Second Life, maybe RuneScape. I know there's like the old school RuneScape if anybody else is into.
Hold the phone. So this demo that they just did, they 3D printed like a saw handle and used an accelerometer and gyroscope to make it
actually
like,
work.
behave like this. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, let's see. Wow. They're like little, I'm going to drop this in. Here's the tutorial. It's, yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody. Andy, yes, Second Life, fully.
That reminds me of
Andy, I feel like we need a game together.
A go-kart to create a simulator for Mario Kart, like so that they could feel like they were sitting in a car and doing Mario Kart. It was really cool.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna, is there old school RuneScape IoT project? Like it looks like
Raspberry Pi. Oh, because you can play RuneScape on Raspberry Pi. Yeah,
which I'm like real life health bar for old school RuneScape. Hey, back in the day, we like used to hook up stuff into Second Life as well. Yeah. TIL, there's a Fortnite API. Yeah, the number of cool Sims 4. I'm like Sims 4 IoT projects. This is my. I don't want the Sims. Like I mean.
Right, yeah, because they definitely they have like an open access API too, because people do all kinds of Sims mods. I wonder if you could like.
I have used the Sims 4 API. That was last week's boredom adventure. Is I do. My wife is literally playing Sims 4 on the Xbox right now. Oh,
I'm trying to think what would be like a really cool IoT controller for Sims 4.
So I have been really into the Jurassic World. There is a Jurassic Oblivion game, Jurassic World Oblivion, Jurassic World Evolution. Wow, it took me a while to get their game. And it's literally like Roller Coaster Tycoon meets Jurassic Park. And you build theme parks, but you have to follow narratives. And then they have like challenge modes that are like, you can be rad. My daughter is playing this one. Yeah, I'm super obsessed with this like absolutely goofy Jurassic Park and Sims 4. Like that's, where does Erin spend her time? Not online. Just on a different device, still online. And in the Jurassic World forum on Reddit and the subreddit, I am there. But yeah, maybe we should get on this and like find a Fortnite project. Or maybe we can, if anybody else here wants to hang out, we can have a Fortnite or Second Life meetup or RuneScape meetup. I was super into RuneScape. My parents told me not to talk to strangers on the internet, and that was.
Yeah, I 100% like right off the bat was like, well, there's so many people here.
Like, Mom, Never mind. I was like, JK, I'm going to make my career out of making friends on the internet. Sorry, Mom.
Well, that's how I learned how to code. And I think this is a story that's really common across a lot of people is like MySpace layouts. I was supposed to have a MySpace. I was 12 years old. I wasn't supposed to have
I was not. Yeah, no, I was like, I wasn't supposed to have a MySpace. I wasn't supposed to have a Tumblr. I wasn't supposed to do any of this stuff. My Tumblr still exists to this day. It's kind of embarrassing.
It was fine.
But actually, I was like, Tumblr actually is making a resurgence right now. Fun fact. And like, I went on recently, and it was like, the user base of Tumblr has actually gone up. PS5, like yeah. I actually do my husband has a PS5, but I steal it to play Need for Speed. I'm like, it gets used for Need for Speed and Jurassic World and Stray. I did play Stray. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, this would be so cool. We should figure out something to do in Fortnite that we can like, because I've got all access to all the 3D printers at the makerspace too. So we could like 3D print kind of like a physical object that we could then use in the game.
I am so down. So I think we have our next project planned.
Yeah.
So I will message you and like text you, and then we will plan this. And yeah, let's do it. I'm so excited right now. And we can maybe have this meeting on Twitch and in Fortnite. We can do both.
Yeah.
That's how the internet works, right?
Yep.
And if you have any cool ideas, I guess tweet at us or tell us some cool things, or you find a cool API, hit us up because it'd be rad. But yeah, thanks all for joining us and hanging out with us for the last hour. This was super fun.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. We can keep spilling the IoT.
Heck yeah.
It'll be fun. All right. Thanks, Julie. It's so good to see you again. I'm like, we got some fans. Like, I'm like, yes, we're gonna get Andy Piper on here. He's gonna probably like Andy Piper. I'm pointing to you. You're the Second Life guru. You're now in charge of owning the Second Life one. But that's the voluntold, right? So, as he says, though, see y'all online. Bye, friends.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.